Part 1. The Great Disappearance. It all began on a Monday, a day like any other. The world was humming along to its usual rhythm, people going about their daily routines, unaware of the catastrophe that loomed over them. Scientists had been warning of an anomaly in the sun's behavior, but the world's governments dismissed their claims, citing economic concerns and a lack of concrete evidence. They couldn't have been more wrong. The first sign of the cataclysm was the sudden disappearance of the sun. One moment it was hanging in the sky like a golden medallion, and the next it was gone, leaving a yawning black void in its place. Panic spread across the globe like wildfire. The streets filled with people staring at the sky, desperately searching for answers. Even the most steadfast skeptics were forced to concede that something unnatural had occurred. The darkness that settled over the world was not merely an absence of light, it was a palpable, suffocating presence. The perpetual night that had enveloped the planet was not the serene, starry variety that people had once known, but a thick, inky blackness that seemed to swallow everything it touched. In this new world, the human eye was rendered utterly useless, plunging the population into a terrifying, unending blindness. Part 2. The Descent into Chaos. As the sunless days stretched into weeks, the effects of the catastrophe began to manifest in disturbing ways. The Earth's temperature plummeted, causing the oceans to freeze and threatening to encase the planet in a layer of impenetrable ice. Plant life withered and died, unable to photosynthesize in the absence of sunlight. The food chain collapsed, and the animal kingdom was plunged into a desperate struggle for survival. But it was humanity that suffered the most. Society unraveled with alarming speed. Law and order disintegrated as the panicked masses turned on one another in a desperate scramble for resources. Governments collapsed under the weight of their own ineptitude, unable to provide even basic necessities for their citizens. As the world descended into chaos, those who had once been neighbors and friends became enemies, willing to do whatever it took to stay alive in this harsh, unforgiving world. In the darkness, a new breed of predators began to emerge, the Vesperati. These nightmarish creatures, born from the depths of human depravity, thrived in the sunless world. Their twisted, distorted forms were barely recognizable as human, and their hunger for flesh was insatiable. They hunted in packs like wolves, preying on the weak and vulnerable. The darkness had given them power, and they reveled in the terror they inspired. Part 3. The last refuge against this backdrop of devastation and despair, a small group of survivors banded together in search of sanctuary. They were led by Eris, a former astrophysicist who had predicted the sun's disappearance and had been working on a plan to save humanity from its own self-destruction. Her vision was to create an underground city powered by geothermal energy and sustained by advanced hydroponic farming techniques. The city would be humanity's last refuge, a bastion of hope in a world consumed by darkness. Eris's group was a motley assortment of individuals, each bringing their own skills and strengths to the table. There was Zara, a fiercely intelligent biologist with an encyclopedic knowledge of plant life. Grant, a stoic ex-soldier who had somehow retained his sense of honor in a world where such notions were quickly becoming obsolete. And Juniper, a young girl with a preternatural ability to navigate the darkness that seemed to defy explanation. Together they formed a tightly knit family, united by their shared determination to survive and to preserve what was left of their humanity. Part 4. The Journey to Salvation. The journey to the proposed site of Eris's underground city was fraught with peril. The group had to navigate treacherous terrain, avoid roving bands of Vesperati, and contend with the ever-present threat of starvation and hypothermia. Each day brought new challenges, but they persevered, driven by the hope that there might still be a future worth fighting for. As they journeyed, they discovered that they were not alone in their quest for survival. They encountered other groups of survivors, some friendly and willing to join forces, while others were hostile, determined to take what little resources they could by force. These encounters served as a stark reminder of the thin line that separated the survivors from the Vesperati, and of the importance of holding on to their humanity. As they neared their destination, the group stumbled upon an abandoned research facility, half buried in ice and snow. The facility, it seemed, had once been a government project dedicated to finding a solution to the sun's disappearance. But it had been overrun by Vesperati, its occupants slaughtered or assimilated into the ranks of the Nightmare. Creatures. It was a sobering reminder of the consequences of failure. Undeterred, Eris and her group pressed on, finally arriving at the site of their future home. Using the knowledge and skills they had accumulated on their journey, they began the arduous task of constructing their underground city. Working tirelessly, they carved out a network of tunnels and chambers, installing geothermal generators and hydroponic farms to sustain them in their subterranean refuge. Slowly but surely, the city began to take shape. Part 5, The Rising Darkness. But their efforts did not go unnoticed. As word of the underground city spread, it attracted the attention of both desperate survivors and the Vesperati. Soon, Eris's group found themselves besieged by an onslaught of human and inhuman foes, all determined to claim the city for themselves. In response, the group fortified their new home, creating a labyrinth of traps and choke points designed to repel any invaders. They transformed themselves into a formidable fighting force, ready and willing to defend their sanctuary at all costs. The final battle for the city came in the form of a massive horde of Vesperati, accompanied by a contingent of rogue survivors seeking to plunder the city's resources. As the horde descended upon the city, Eris and her group fought with everything they had, repelling wave after wave of nightmarish creatures and human marauders. But the tide of battle began to turn against them. The sheer number of Vesperati and their relentless attacks began to wear down the defenders. Just when it seemed that all was lost, Eris devised a desperate plan to turn the tide in their favor. Utilizing the research facility's abandoned technology, she intended to create a makeshift solar flare, a blast of searing light that would obliterate the Vesperati and drive away the remaining human attackers. As Eris raced to complete her last-ditch effort, the battle raged on outside the city walls. The defenders were pushed to their breaking point, exhaustion and despair threatening to overwhelm them. Just as the last line of defense began to buckle, Eris activated her makeshift solar flare. A brilliant, blinding light filled the sky, like a miniature sun bursting to life. The Vesperati, unable to withstand the intense light, were incinerated in an instant, while the remaining human attackers retreated in terror. As the dust settled, Eris and her group emerged victorious, their city secured against the onslaught. In the aftermath of the battle, they took a moment to mourn their fallen comrades and to reflect on the cost of their victory. But they also celebrated, for they had proved that even in the face of overwhelming darkness, humanity could still prevail. Part 6, A Glimmer of Hope. With the immediate threat neutralized, Eris and her group turned their attention back to the task of building their underground city. They welcomed new survivors into their ranks, slowly expanding the community and working together to create a sustainable, self-contained ecosystem. Life in the city was far from easy, but it was a testament to the resilience and determination of the human spirit. As the years passed, the city became a beacon of hope in the sunless world. Tales of the last refuge of humanity spread far and wide, inspiring other survivors to embark on their own journeys in search of sanctuary. Eris, now the de facto leader of the city, continued her research, searching for a way to reverse the sun's disappearance and restore light to the world. One day, while poring over the data from the abandoned research facility, Eris made a groundbreaking discovery. It seemed that the sun's disappearance was not permanent, but rather the result of an unprecedented cosmic event that had temporarily obscured it from view. The data suggested that in time the sun would re-emerge, bathing the world in light once more. Fueled by this newfound hope, Eris and her team of scientists redoubled their efforts, working tirelessly to devise a plan to hasten the sun's return. They knew that the task ahead of them would be monumental and that the odds of success were slim, but they refused to give up. For the first time since the sun's disappearance, there was a glimmer of hope on the horizon. Part 7. The Final Gambit. As the years turned into decades, Eris and her team continued their research, making slow but steady progress in their quest to restore the sun. They developed cutting-edge technology that could harness the Earth's geothermal energy and convert it into a powerful beam of light, one strong enough to pierce the cosmic veil that shrouded the sun. The day finally came when Eris and her team were ready to put their plan into action. The underground city was abuzz with anticipation and anxiety as the fate of the entire world rested on their shoulders. They knew that if they failed, the consequences would be dire, not only for them but for all of humanity. The plan required PR. Precise coordination and execution, as any misstep could lead to catastrophe. As the moment of truth approached, Eris gave a rousing speech to the gathered citizens of the city, reminding them of their collective strength and urging them to believe in the possibility of a brighter future. With the entire city watching in anticipation, Eris and her team activated the geothermal beam, directing its immense power towards the heavens. The beam cut through the darkness like a knife, its brilliant light a stark contrast to the inky blackness that had enveloped the world for so long. As the beam reached its apex, there was a moment of tension as everyone held their breath, waiting to see if their efforts had been in vain. And then, slowly, the darkness began to recede, the beam of light seemingly pushing back the cosmic veil that had obscured the sun. Part 8. The Dawn of a New Era. As the sun finally re-emerged, bathing the world in its warm golden light, the people of the underground city rejoiced. Their hard work, their sacrifices, and their unwavering determination had paid off. They had succeeded in restoring light to the world and had saved humanity from a fate worse than death. But their victory was not without its challenges. As the world began to thaw, the survivors faced the monumental task of rebuilding society from the ashes of its former self. The once frozen wastelands gradually transformed into fertile plains, and the survivors ventured forth from their underground sanctuary to reclaim the land that had been lost to the darkness. Eris, now hailed as the savior of humanity, led the charge, her wisdom and experience guiding the reconstruction efforts. The people of the underground city worked alongside survivors from other communities, forging new alliances and creating a global network of cooperation and support. Together they began to rebuild their shattered world one brick at a time. As the years passed, the Earth underwent a remarkable transformation. Cities rose from the ashes, forests and fields reclaimed the land, and the once frozen oceans teemed with life once more. The human race, once on the brink of extinction, had emerged from the darkness stronger and more united than ever before. Yet there were those who still harbored resentment and suspicion, unwilling to let go of the old ways and the bitterness that had festered in the sunless days. These rogue elements sought to undermine the progress that had been made, hoping to seize power and plunge the world back into chaos. Eris and her allies remained vigilant, knowing that the fight for humanity's future was far from over. In time, the scars of the past began to fade, and the world entered a new era of peace and prosperity. Eris, now an elder stateswoman, continued to be a guiding force for her people, her wisdom and foresight valued by all. The lessons of the Sunless Days had been hard-learned, but they had given humanity a renewed sense of purpose and a determination to never again fall prey to darkness and despair. But as the people of Earth looked to the future, an unsettling discovery threatened to upend everything they had built. In the far reaches of the cosmos, a mysterious celestial object was detected, its trajectory bringing it on a collision course with Earth. This new threat, it seemed, could unleash a catastrophe even more devastating than the sun's disappearance, and time was running out to find a solution. As panic began to spread, Eris once again stepped forward, her indomitable spirit undeterred by the challenges that lay ahead. She rallied her people, urging them to come together and confront this new threat head-on. With the entire world watching, she vowed to find a way to avert the impending disaster and secure a future for humanity, no matter the cost. And so, as the world faced yet another trial, the people of Earth prepared to embark on a new journey, one fraught with danger and uncertainty. But with the memory of their triumph over the Sunless Days still fresh in their minds, they held on to the belief that together they could overcome any obstacle and emerge victorious once more. As the celestial object drew ever closer, casting an ominous shadow over the Earth, Eris and her allies braced themselves for the challenge that lay ahead, determined to confront the unknown and forge a new destiny for their world. To be continued